Hey Vanessa, how you doing today? Good to see you.
Hey, yeah, lovely to see you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. How's your day been so far?
Yeah, good, thanks. Yeah, very good. Busy, but good for a Monday.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, so let the viewers know who you are, what you do, and why you do it, Vanessa.
Yeah, sure. I am Vanessa White and I'm an accredited relationship and divorce coach. So I really kind of use my learned experience along with my own lived experience to help my clients navigate all things relationships, separation, divorce, dating. And I have a specialism in domestic abuse. So I do quite a lot of work in that area. And I see male and female clients from anywhere, basically.
Right, right, right. So when you think back and look back on your own journey before you got into what you do, what was what was going through your mind at the time when you decided this is actually what you want to do going forward, looking at the kind of steps that led you up to that point?
Yeah, well, I am divorced myself quite a long time ago now, and I was also in a long abusive relationship, and uh, obviously that kind of shapes a lot about a person, both those experiences actually. And after I'd come out of that relationship and was, I suppose, going on my own self-development journey and I found that I really wanted to kind of firstly help my own children to um, ultimately not go into the kind of relationship that I'd been in and to understand what healthy relationships are, understand the kind of skills you need for that, understand how to get out of relationships that are not healthy or make you happy. And then I kind of thought, well, why do that for just my children, but for other people too? And I studied and got accredited as a relationship and divorce coach. And then I did a master accreditation on top of that, which gave me the specialism in domestic abuse. And then as I was doing that, I set up my own business. And the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, for a lot of people that have been through similar situations in abusive relationships, there are different reasons why they stay in that relationship, even though it was abusive at the time. In your personal experience and for yourself, like, what was the reason that kept you in that relationship when you found that it was abusive?
Um, I guess for me, it was kind of it was a different way round, actually. I would never have labeled it as abusive. And I think this is also something commonly I see, um, and speaking to a lot of people who have been or are in an abusive relationship. For me personally, I it was a kind of insipid drip, drip, drip effect. Tiny, tiny things, incremental things that happened over time. This is a long, drawn out process, which is, again, very, very common. So it wasn't kind of suddenly, it was all, one day someone's very nice, the next day they're awful and abusive. It's these small things that happen incrementally. And because of that, you actually don't realize kind of what is actually happening. And it's only when you then kind of look back that you realize actually what's going on. So for me, I mean, it was a very long relationship and I would never have labeled it as abusive. I wouldn't have put that label on what I was feeling and what was going on. And so it wasn't until very, very late on in the relationship that I realized this was more than just an unhappy relationship. This was more than just difficulties in a relationship. It was quite significantly. And then it wasn't actually until somebody else who was a medical professional actually who witnessed some terrible, terrible behavior towards me, who pointed out to me afterwards and actually put the label on of domestic abuse. And it wasn't that many, was probably another year, 18 months before the relationship ended. But up until that point, I wouldn't have labeled it as that. And I see that a lot now. So there's a lot of people who, you know, don't realize what they're in is abusive, because abuse has very commonly been thought of as kind of physical abuse. So, being kicked, being punched, hair being pulled, pushed, those kinds of physical um, issues. But obviously, domestic abuse is so much more than that. It encompasses emotional abuse, coercive control, psychological abuse, financial abuse, tech abuse now. There's so many different types of issues that go into domestic abuse. And for a lot of those, people don't even realize what they're in is abusive. Um, so you have that element of it. And then you obviously have the element of people who take a long time to get out of it once they realize, it is not easy getting out of an abusive relationship. And, it takes on average, I think, 8 or 9 times to try and get out of one. So, a lot of the reason is because people are terrified. If you're in an abusive relationship, whether it's physically abusive or not, you are living in fear. You are frightened all the time. And if you have children, that's exacerbated. So that fear can keep you there. What will my partner do? What will happen to me? Will they take the children away? So there's a lot around fear. Um, Financial issues is a big reason why people stay. Can they afford to leave? Particularly if there's been kind of financial or economic abuse where the perpetrator has kept funds or doesn't let the victim actually see their salary, or, doesn't let them have bank accounts, things like that. They just physically cannot afford to leave. So that's a big, big issue. And obviously, if there are children involved, there's big implications for the children. There's often threats made that you'll never get the children. You'll lose the children if you leave. Which obviously, if you're a parent, that is a massive risk. That when you're terrified and you believe these people, is something that would keep you in a relationship.
Right, right, right. So, like, you mentioned like the label of like abuse in relationships can be different. So, in your situation, was it more emotional abuse, financial abuse, or what kind of abuse are you talking about? And you can share as much as you are comfortable sharing.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, mine was pretty much every type of abuse going virtually, those kind of lists of types of domestic abuse. I could tick pretty much all of it. So there was a lot of coercive control, psychological, emotional, tech abuse. My phone and things were hacked into without my knowledge. I was, gaslit a lot. There was so much financial and economic abuse, which I didn't realize. A lot of people still don't even realize that's a thing. And that's a type of abuse that can carry on even after the relationship has ended very often. It's still a way that perpetrators can abuse their ex-partners even after divorce, even after, a relationship has ended. So yeah, I had pretty much every type going.
Right, right. Like oftentimes when we look at people that like want to abuse their partner in some kind of way, there tends to be some type of insecurities that they themselves are facing. What kind of insecurities would you say that your partner may have been facing at that time when you were together?
I don't know, and it's not really something that I can comment on. Why someone chooses to abuse their partner. It's not really for me to say, in those terms. And I can't really comment on my ex-partner and their choices that they made, I'm afraid.
Right, okay. Like, and also, like, there tends to be certain patterns that we witness in people that go through like certain types of relationships. Would you say that there's been a pattern in your relationships prior to this relationship that we're discussing that was also abusive in any kind of way, or was this like a one time that it came across in your life?
Um, it's the only time it's come across in my life. I know what you're saying, and actually you're quite right. You know, very often people get into patterns of behaviors and see a very clear pattern of relationship types that they enter into. And I see that with clients now, and I help them kind of break those patterns because I think there's actually nothing sadder really than when you've been in an abusive relationship, you've managed to get out of it, which, like I said, is extremely challenging. And then you end up falling back into the same type of relationship, but just with a different face on the other person. I think that is really, really sad. So you're quite right that that is an issue very often. Um, and, you know, that's not about blaming ourselves for getting into those relationships. But there is a thing about, what is there about us that we can change to kind of um, help ourselves going forward. And for me, no, I hadn't been in another abusive relationship, and I haven't since that one. Partly because I've done a lot of work on myself since. I mean, this is quite a long time ago now. Um, and I have had a lot of therapy myself, counselling, support from support groups, my local domestic abuse charity, my friends and family, and also because of the job I do, I have, I suppose, quite an in-depth knowledge. So I have not entered into another abusive relationship, which is good. And I would definitely say helping people to break those patterns is really, really beneficial.
Right, right, excellent, excellent. Now, like, you've obviously come out of that situation and you was able to move forward with your life. You said you got a lot of help along the way as well. What were the main changes that you're able to make in yourself that got you through that and to get to where you are now?
Yes, I mean, if I look at the me now and the me when I was entering that relationship, and first met that person, I mean, I really lacked self-worth. I lacked self-value. I had a real massive amount of lack of self-belief. Um, and that, I look and I think I was sort of grateful for someone giving me attention. I was sort of grateful for somebody seeming to want to love me. Because I didn't really probably love myself, and I didn't value myself and know that I deserved the best in relationships, which everybody does. And so if I look at myself now, I have self-worth, I have self-respect, I value myself, and I understand the kind of behavior that is acceptable towards me and that is not. Um, how did I get to this point? I suppose a lot of self-reflection, self-awareness, understanding where that lack of self-value and self-belief came from, because that didn't actually come from the relationship initially. It got much, much worse during the relationship. But originally it came from somewhere else, actually, why I felt like that. So it's kind of unpicking those things, and it's learning to realize that you are a good person, and it's okay to have boundaries, it's okay to walk away from things that are not good, all of those things. And it takes time to get there. This is the journey. It's not like 1 minute someone comes out of an abusive relationship and kind of a few weeks later they're all sort of much more self-aware and much more in control of kind of what they're doing and where they're going with their life. It takes time, but I think it's really important to actually go through that growth and development, what some people would call healing, um, before getting into other relationships. And that's part of the stuff of actually, you know, changing those behaviors, which some of which is looking at yourself and in the first place, where you feel vulnerable to perhaps getting into another one of those relationships.
Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And a lot of people that like go through similar situations, after coming out of it, they really don't want to be involved in anything like that ever again. And because they're afraid of falling into that kind of situation again, they tend to immerse themselves into their professional life, and they kind of neglect their intimate side because of the trauma in the past. So at some point, though, like because they've immersed themselves so much into their professional life, and their intimate side is lacking so much, there's a kind of a gap, right? But as a human being, they still have that need to bridge that gap. They still have that need for intimacy, and they want to get back into like relationships at some point, somehow. So, in your opinion, how could someone that's gone through that type of situation start to embrace relationships once again and bridge that gap once again?
That's a really good point because I think even people, yeah, who've been through the most difficult breakups, divorce, relationships, do want to find love again. You're absolutely right. I would agree. Um, a lot of it is to do with trust, and this comes up a lot with me with clients. How will I ever trust anyone again? How will I know that someone isn't like that? That's a really important factor. And I always say about trust that it's actually about trusting yourself because the common kind of situation for me with clients, if we're looking at people who have been in abusive relationships, is very often they knew early on, sometimes literally at the time of meeting this person, there were signs of abuse, actually. You know, they might have been quite small, but right back at the start, it's very, very common for people to say to me, yeah, but I knew, I saw this behavior, I saw them speak to someone like that, or they spoke to me like this, but I ignored my gut instinct, which was saying, hang on a minute, this is not good. I ignored my gut instinct and I just carried on because there were other things about them that I liked, or they were really good looking, or, whatever it is. And actually, we want to learn to trust our gut instinct again. That is our biggest safety net because your gut instinct is there to protect you. It's the thing that tells you first if something's wrong. You know yourself, if you're in a situation, any situation, but you get that feeling in your gut, you know, you need to take note of that, even if you don't understand actually what it's telling you and what's going on. We really must get much more in tune with that. And that is something I commonly hear. So, learning to listen to our gut instinct and actually trust it is a really, really good tool for people.
Right, yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, like a lot of times, like when people feel like they've faced something in a relationship as well, it comes down to like their belief systems in their relationship. For example, we have like gender roles a lot in relationships where someone tends to lead in a relationship and the other person chooses to follow in that relationship oftentimes. So that can often like cause someone to feel like, oh, you kind of look at me in a smaller way, or like put me down because you feel like our genders are different, or you have a different role and I have a smaller role, or something like that. In that context, what is your viewpoint on gender roles within relationships, and how can they affect the dynamics between people?
Um, I mean, I'm a big sort of advocate for kind of partnership, and I see people who are in same-sex couples, and actually, domestic abuse is pertinent in same-sex couples as it is in heterosexual couples. um but I really feel like there, gender stereotypes and that sort of um stuff that you're talking about, it doesn't really have a place in relationships. Sadly, it's there very often, but actually, domestic abuse and bullying and abuse generally actually is all about an imbalance of power. That is kind of what is at the root cause of it. So it doesn't matter whether it's abuse in the workplace or it's bullying in, a friendship group or whatever. it stems from an imbalance of power where somebody thinks they have more power over somebody else and uses that to control them or abuse them in some way. So when you look at that, that most abuse is male on female abuse. That is what the statistics say. So 1 in 3 women will experience domestic abuse at some point in their lifetime. It's about 1 in 6 men that will experience it, and that's the reported figures. So, there is, and it's predominantly male on female abuse. But I think it's back to that thing. It doesn't matter what sex you are or what the construct of your relationship is, sort of it really is about imbalance of power. So in any relationship, we should have open, clear communication with our partner where either party feels that they can express their needs, they can talk about what they feel, talk about what the other one maybe they don't like in their behavior without fear of retribution, but actually be able to have those conversations. Doesn't mean you always agree and that conflict is not there. Conflict is a healthy part of a relationship, as long as it's with kindness and compassion. But actually, that feeling that you feel you can say anything, and it doesn't matter which one of the party it is, which sex it is of the relationship, that is really, really important. And I think we have to really move away from gender stereotypes, like we should in all areas of society, really, because certainly in relationship, it's not just men and women, it could be 2 women, 2 men. And, it's not about power and somebody having the upper hand. It's about coming together with both of you as individuals, bringing your strengths, your weaknesses, growing together, and being able to communicate openly and honestly with each other.
Right, right. Speaking further about gender roles between heterosexuals, because the viewers are like heterosexual people, and like the podcast is geared towards the relationship dynamics between men and women. Like because people that don't necessarily want to fit into like this type of like gender roles within relationships in a monogamous relationship, so to speak, they start to look at different types of relationships and to start to see what else is available for them out there, maybe something that's more fitting to who they are as a person. So they start to look at things like monogamy versus non-monogamy and seeing if that's could be a better fit for them. So in your opinion, what is your viewpoint on monogamy versus non-monogamy?
Um, my viewpoint is really in relationships, as long as both parties are happy with what is going on, I don't see anything wrong. Obviously, as long as both parties are safe, there are some um, situations and some areas that potentially there is some risk involved. I think as long as both parties feel safe and both people in the couple are on the same page, if one of the couple is really into monogamy and the other one isn't, and they want, numerous partners, you know, that obviously is not particularly compatible, um, because that's quite a different offering for each of them. Now, you know, if one of the parties feels pressured to go along with something that the other one wants, that is not great, whatever that is. We should be able to be free to say, actually, I don't want that. I want just one partner, and that's you, and that's who I've chosen. And if they ever feel that they're pushed into another scenario, that is not great, whatever the scenario is, actually. And it should be that you ideally, if those are sort of feelings that you have that are present before you enter a relationship, it would be good to talk about that to the other person before you enter into a relationship. Now, obviously, that does not always happen. And sometimes people's views change and what people want change, and that's totally fine. But you've got to communicate it about it. And the other person reserves the right to say, but I don't want that. Now, that is then open to what happens then if you both want different things. You either find a way forward and one of you compromises on what you want, which may be successful, may not be, if it's a really deep desire for you, or, you know, you end up, it's not compatible because you want totally different things, and that ends a relationship.
Yeah. Do you think there's something missing in a relationship when someone says they want to open it up, when they tell their partner they would like to open up the relationship? Do you think that means there's something missing in that relationship, or do you feel like a relationship can be whole even if it's open?
Um, I think if that is your preference and you are both happy with that, and that is what makes your relationships successful and happy, then it's not for anyone else to say, no, that's wrong or that's not right, or it's not a proper relationship, therefore, with your just your one partner. I think, it's very personal. And I think we have to be very, very careful of judging people within their relationships in whatever area it is, because, you know, judging people and what goes on, you never actually know what's going on behind closed doors. You never actually know what the situation is. And like I say, if two parties are non-monogamous and that is what their preference is, who is it for anyone else to say that's right, wrong, or that means their relationship is not whole? um, it's not. It's when there are big differences between the two parties, but it's still not for anyone else to judge whether that's right or wrong.
Yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. Now, regardless of if a relationship is monogamous or non-monogamous, there can always be like a jealousy that comes up in relationships. For example, in a non-monogamous relationship, it could be you're spending more time with this person than you're spending with me. In a monogamous relationship, is you're always talking to this person, or I notice you looking at this person. So, like to the point that the person that's been accused of things like feels like, how can I communicate to my partner that there's nothing to be jealous about? In your opinion, how can the partner that's feeling these jealous emotions start to deal with those emotions of jealousy?
Well, I think if you feel it's bred from insecurity, feelings of jealousy within a relationship, for whatever reason it's there. Um, you know, if there's someone's talking about their partner is talking particularly about someone at work quite a lot, and that can breed level feelings of jealousy, and that comes from a feeling of insecurity and doubt, and you know slight lack of trust maybe, or a fear of they might go off with this person. So you might have a real fear of rejection that comes from your childhood and from your previous experiences. And this has really kind of fed into that. And you just think, gosh, they might leave me for this person. So there's lots of different reasons why someone might feel jealous. But if you're feeling jealous of your partner and something going on with somebody else potentially, um, it's coming from insecurity. And actually, what you need is to be able to communicate that to your partner. I am feeling jealous. I am feeling insecure. I'm feeling like I'm not sure whether you still feel the same about me. And actually expressing that and having the conversation and seeing what they come back with. Now, ideally, and in a healthy relationship dynamic, they should come back with reassurance. They should come back with, gosh, I'm so sorry you feel that way. I'm not intending to make you feel that way. You absolutely have nothing to worry about. I love you. You're everything to me, whatever they want to say. But that sort of scenario, someone who comes back with, God, get over yourself. What's your problem? What have you got to be jealous about? That sort of attitude, that feedback, no matter whether something's going on with someone else or not, is kind of immaterial. But if that's their attitude when you raise those concerns of how you're feeling, their partner, then I would be, really cautious, just because that's not the kind of response that we should give our partner in that thing. We should give them reassurance, understanding, and actually talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. Communication is definitely key in fostering a healthier relationship between anybody. Yeah, so, but sometimes, when we speak about like jealousy and things like that, sometimes there's some truth to that feeling because infidelity has actually happened in the relationship. And once that's happened, and if the partner wants to come clean about what has happened, the partner that's been cheated on has to make a decision whether they want to stay in this relationship or move on. So, with that being said, what is your opinion on forgiveness after infidelity in a relationship?
Great question. I think forgiveness is an interesting one because, people talk about forgiveness, in that context, particularly, but also in other contexts, actually, even with kind of abusive relationships. I think, again, it's very personal to the person feeling. I know lots of people where betrayal has been a big part of their relationship. That it's happened maybe once, maybe more than once. And, people react in very different ways to that. Some, it's an absolute non-negotiable. It's over. The first sniff of any infidelity, and that is the end. And they have very, very clear boundaries of that. And, they may never forgive that person, but it will be the end of the relationship. Other people, you know, have less clear views on the relationship ending and want to work with it because if it has come out of the blue, it's like suddenly this thing has come and landed in a relationship that maybe you thought was really great and was really happy and really healthy. And it's a lot to process. I think, you know, there's a lot of things around whether to forgive somebody or what happened in a relationship. I think if betrayal has come to light and there's an affair that's come to light, you want to see some accepting of responsibility from the person who's had the affair. Actually, it's about them taking accountability for what they have done and why they've done it. And that is really, really important. I hear about people who say, oh, well, they've said sorry. Well, sorry is only meaningful when it is backed up with behavior to show that they're sorry. I can say sorry, I could have an affair, say sorry to my partner, and literally the next minute go and have another one. So that the sorry is meaningless in that context because what's the point of saying sorry? What you want is someone to say sorry and then not ever do it again. You know, those have got to be kind of hand in hand. Behavior and words have to match in that for me in that context. And so somebody who is genuinely sorry steps up, takes accountability, then follows that up with behavior and they don't ever have any dalliances again, you know, yes, potentially someone might want to forgive them. They won't necessarily forgive the hurt that they caused because these are adults making choices. You make a choice if you're going to go and sleep with someone else when you've got another partner. That is a choice. You can stop yourself from doing that at any point up to that point. So, you know, it's whether you forgive it, but there's got to be accountability. There's got to be sorry backed up with actions. And I think there's lots of reasons, again, why people stay in relationships with people who maybe are sort of serial betrayers. And again, it's some of the similar ones. You've got children together, people who have an amazing lifestyle together. Maybe they have amazing house, amazing holidays. They don't want to lose that, so they will just turn a blind eye to what's going on. You know, there's again, they can't afford themselves to leave. There's lots of different reasons why people stay, even if they don't forgive. But forgiveness comes from where there's a clear recognition that the behavior has hurt somebody, and they take accountability for that. They are sorry, and they show them that they're sorry.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Vanessa, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for everything that you've shared. Where can people find you, find out more about you, and find out more about what you do?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Yeah, my website is www.vanessawhite.co.uk. I'm also on Instagram, Vanessa White Coaching. I'm on TikTok, the same, and YouTube, and I'm on LinkedIn. So people can find me there. They can find how to book with me if they would like to have an appointment with me, and I offer everyone a kind of free initial chat to see whether they think I'm the right person to work with them. And so I can understand more about their issue as well.
Excellent. And for the viewers, all of that information will be in the description so you can get in touch with Vanessa and find out more about what she does. Once again, Vanessa, thank you so much for coming on. Any final words before we wrap up?
No, it's been a pleasure coming on. I'm always very, very keen to talk about relationship issues and how to kind of overcome them, and obviously to educate about domestic abuse. It's really, really important. So thank you for the opportunity.
You're very welcome, Vanessa, and thank you.